And welcome into the Make the Money and Run podcast, the Friday football show for December 17th, 2021. We're sponsored by the Britannia Arms of Cupertino and the Britannia Arms of Capitola. Check out the Britannia Arms in either location for NFL Sunday Ticket, all your sports action and sports fandom during the week, happy hour specials, all sorts of specials going on as well, too. We will be in Capitola on Sunday. Vasivada Party, intern Nick Robinson here, Charlie O. Another day off. He's got some family stuff, so he's on assignment, taking care of that, resting up for the big playoff run, as he's known to do on this 1 week before Christmas Eve. We're also sponsored by Super Draft Pro. Check out Super Draft Pro on your app. Get it on your app or off your phone or any device, or go to superdraftpro.com/VPartySports. Get the subscriptions. Different way of fantasy sports, different way of daily fantasy sports. More of a community, but real opportunities to win real dollars on there as well, too. We will have the Make the Money and Run podcast on Sunday at the Britannia Arms in Capitola, 9:45 Pacific time, right on the shores of the Pacific Ocean in Capitola Village. Come on down and join us. We'll have the link up if you want to join us and ask questions, make comments. We appreciate every one of you following us on the show as well to do that. All right, Nick, how are you? What's going on?
Fantastic. How are we doing, Vasu?
Well,
loved the game yesterday.
I didn't love the ending of the football game, but other than that, it seemed to be okay.
It was a crazy one, though. Maybe a game of the year candidate, if I must say.
Only if I won, I would nominate it as a game of the year. Kind of the way I am like that. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm a little sore right now. Okay, Thursday night football. Let's get to it. The AFC West matchup of the year so far to this point, as Nick said. The LA Chargers, Kansas City Chiefs, Kansas City red hot right now, 34-28. Overtime victory on a Travis Kelce 34-yard touchdown pass right through the defense and the Chargers. I think more importantly, the Chargers left points on the board. They had chances to kick field goals. They went for it on fourth down on their first possession. Was not successful. Could have kicked a field goal there. If they kicked the field goal, maybe they don't go into overtime. Maybe they win the game outright. If they won the game, they'd be in first place in the AFC West, and they'd probably be ahead of the actually, they'd be behind the Ravens in fourth spot. But Kansas City wins. They're 10-4. Holy cow, they're 10-4. They're the number one seed now in the AFC, considering how their season started. The game was 3-52.5 where it ended, so they did cover that. The game did go over thanks to the Patrick Mahomes touchdown late in the game, and then the overtime touchdown to Kelce. 52.5 was the total. It went under the first time they played, but that was 55.5. So 52.5 is over. Chiefs started 2-3, have gone 8-1 since then. 6-3 is a favorite. They're only the second over in 8 games. Defense the key. They've outscored their opponents in the last 9 games by 98 points. So that's almost 11 a game. They're outscoring teams after they started off at 2-3. So Nick Robinson, intern Nick, watcher of football, thoughts on Thursday night game and how it panned out for you?
Well, that was a fantastic game. Like you said, the Chargers left way too many points on the board. It almost seemed like they were playing Madden out there with their fourth down. They could just go for it. I know they missed up on about 9 to 12 field goal points, and I understand where they're coming from. You have to score a lot of points to beat the Chiefs, and because they can score in a hurry. Their offense is elite. They're kind of like the Warriors in basketball. They just run and shoot threes, but instead Mahomes just chucks the ball downfield, and you saw Kelce running a rough shot all over the field. But I think at some point you got to take the points. So I think that's where they kind of messed up, but I think they'll learn from it and probably see them again in the playoffs. So I think it's going to be we'll see a third game in this one. And I think the Chargers will be a little different, a little more conservative kicking the field goals, but they definitely learn from their mistakes.
What do you think about the Chiefs now? 8-1 in their last 9. They seem to be the hottest team in football right now. Them and the Patriots, probably the 2 top teams going in the AFC right now.
Everyone wrote them off in the beginning, and as I said before, I don't think you can write off Mahomes or the Chiefs at any point. Andy Reid's too good of a coach. They've got the best weapons in the NFL, Kelce and Hill. It's hard to guard him. I mean, the guy was limping out there in the fourth quarter in OT. Didn't look like he was going to come in. Comes in for a few plays, still runs a nasty route with an injured foot, and gets 20 yards to help the drive keep going. I mean, this offense is quite literally unstoppable. And then when their defense steps up the last few weeks, they look like they're Super Bowl candidates. So it's hard to write them off at any times, especially when they're 2-3 and the season's just starting. So I saw that they were going to. It's easy to tell that they were going to get on a hot streak, but I didn't see 8-1 coming. So I'm very surprised, but you can't be too surprised.
The only loss they had in that 9-game stretch was a loss to the Tennessee Titans on the road. They lost 27-3, and since that point, we made that point yesterday. I think they were 197 to 105 in terms of points scored and points allowed. Some of the numbers from yesterday: Patrick Mahomes, 410 yards, 3 touchdowns, the 1 interception, which I thought was going to help the Chargers. They got it right inside the red zone, inside the 5-yard line. They were able to score the touchdown and take a 21-13 lead. That fourth quarter was pretty wild from that standpoint. They didn't rush very well. Mahomes had the longest rush. He and Hilaire tied for the most yards at 32, but that was on one run for Patrick Mahomes, a 32-yard run on a third down that turned out to be a big play down the stretch. Edwards-Hilaire had 32 yards rushing. Williams had 12, total of 86 on 20 carries, 4.3. But here's where the numbers get different here. Travis Kelce, we just talked about, 10 catches, 191 yards, about 3 times, almost 3 times your output on your prop bet there, 191, 19.1 average, obviously. 2 touchdowns, the game winner in overtime. Tyreek Hill, 12 catches, 148 yards. He had a touchdown as well, too. Now the Chargers, they ran for 192 yards, but they did leave the points on the board. And that was the big thing that I noticed, is that they were running the ball. And I think maybe at some point, I know Keenan Allen had a wide receiver pass attempt in the game. They were running the ball on them. I don't know if that would have helped them conserve more time, but you're right, Nick. They left a little too much time for Patrick Mahomes in that fourth quarter. And then they got to the overtime. And I don't know what the defense was doing in the overtime. I just barely turned up to the TV. Next thing I know, Travis Kelce is running through the defense for a touchdown, and that's a loser for the Chargers fans who had them yesterday. But 8-6 for the Chargers. They started off 4-1. They're 4-5 now since then. 4-1 against the spread to open the year. Now 3-6 against the spread since then. 3-2 as a dog. 7-7 overall in the over/under, and 6-3 over/under in the last 9 games since they've gone 4-5 in those last 9 games. The one game they didn't cover that they did win was the Sunday Night Football game against the Pittsburgh Steelers. So that's the difference in the spread record and their overall record. Said Mahomes had 410 yards, 3 touchdowns. Did you think he looked great? I don't know if he looked great. He had a lot of yards, and they did get a lot of rack. They did get a lot of yak after catches with Kelce and Mahomes and Tyreek Hill. So you got to think that had something to do with it. Let me see if they had any other receivers. Their fullback, Mike Burton, scored the first touchdown of the game. He had 7 yards, and that was it. Was a 7-yard touchdown. Pringle had 22 yards. Burton had 2 for 20, 2 for 18 for Edwards-Hilaire. McCole Hardman had a couple of drops, 2 for 11. And then Blake Bell, Denard Robinson, Williams, all nothing for nothing. So really, it was pretty much spread out. 339 yards on 22 catches for Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill combined. 3 touchdowns as well, too. Don't forget about that as well. So final thoughts on the Chiefs and Chargers. Nick, from last night, where do the Chargers go from here? That really puts a cramp in their plans to maybe catch the Chiefs for the AFC West.
Yeah, well, it was a star-studded game, like you said. Kelce and Hill pretty much did everything for the Chiefs. I'm surprised that they didn't get double covered, but it makes sense given Mahomes' scramble ability. But as you asked, I don't think Mahomes 100%. I know he missed a lot of throws, especially that throw to McCole Hardman in the third quarter where he was kind of wide open on 4th down and he kind of just chucked it into the ground. And he did that a couple more times. But then again, it's always Mahomes, and he didn't make the easy throws, but he comes out, scrambles, and chucks one from the side of his arm and makes an insane throw to Kelce to tie up the game. So you never know what he can do. And I guess he's not human, or it shows that he's human, but sometimes he could do some insane robotic stuff that makes no sense to any of us. But I think from here, the Chargers, like you said, their run game, I think that's a lot of positives right there. I think they ran all over the Chiefs. They should have continued to do that. And in my opinion, maybe if Keenan Allen had ran a 7-yard in instead of a touchdown on that and just gotten the quick first down, maybe ice the game, just kick a field goal to end it, that would have been nice. But you can't knock them going
Can't
for the
fault him.
touchdown
Yeah, you
against.
can't fault him for taking
So
touchdowns like that. I know.
exactly.
Yeah.
So maybe you live and you learn, and I think they'll win a few more games after this and make the playoffs. So they're too good of a team to not make the playoffs. I love the Chargers.
Well, the Chiefs 10-4, the best record in the AFC right now. The Chargers 8-6, 2 games back. They split the season series. Both teams 5-4 in the conference, but the difference in the tiebreaker will be, and it'll be hard to catch them because they'll only have one more division game, does Kansas City, so they won't catch them from there because the Chargers are 2-2 in their division, and the Chiefs are 4-1. They only have one division game left. I believe it's against. No, it's not against the Chargers. I believe it's against Denver later in the year. So they're going to have one more division game. They've already played the Raiders twice. They played the Chargers twice. They played Denver once. So it's going to be Denver that they have at the end of the year as the last game. So even if they end up tied in the division record, the conference record will probably end up favoring Kansas City if the Chargers find a way to get tied to them. And that's going to be pretty tough to catch them 2 games back with 2 to go now for the Chiefs and the Chargers coming into this weekend's football. All right. So the Chiefs are 10-4, 6-2 at home, 4-2 on the road. They have the number 1 seed. They took it over from the Patriots. Nobody's played yet this weekend, so the Patriots can come back and get that. We'll get that game in a second. But as far as the Chargers go, that's where they stand at right now. A good game. If you all had the Chargers like we did, all 3 of us did, then they hurt in overtime. 3 of the last 4 weeks, I've had touchdowns in overtime that have hurt me, and a last-minute touchdown by Leonard Fournette against the Colts. So it's 59 minutes is not how the game's scored, Nick, when you go to the sportsbook. It's all 60 minutes to count when you're trying to cash your ticket.
Vegas knows too well. It's crazy.
All right, Vasivada Party, intern Nick Robinson here with you. The Make the Money and Run podcast, sponsored by the Britannia Arms of Capitola. They'll host the Make the Money and Run podcast Sunday, 9:30. Actually, that's 9:45 before NFL kickoff. The full preview of Week 15 Sunday with the NFL Sunday ticket all day. Best British food and pub restaurant in the Northern California area. And if you get a little tired of football in the morning or you need a little break, you take 10 steps and you walk out to the Pacific Ocean. It's not a bad deal. It's not a bad deal at all. And don't forget, Super Draft Pro is our new partner. Download the app or log in at superdraftpro.com/VParty Sports, or download the app on any of your mobile devices, wherever you get that. Real opportunity for real community, real opportunities to win real dollars as well, too. All right, let's move on with the NFL. Chiefs, the winner last night over the Chargers, -3 and 52.5. Covered, the favorite covered, and the over went over thanks to the last second touchdown in the fourth quarter by Mahomes, and then the overtime winner as well. All right, we move on. We have Saturday football now, no college football. We've got 2 games on Saturday. Let's start with the Las Vegas Raiders are heading to the Cleveland Browns this weekend. A very important game for both teams. Raiders at 6-7, trending downward, 1-5 in their last 6. The Browns coming off their victory over the Ravens last week, 24-22. Unfortunately, they're going to have 14 players on COVID. I went through the depth chart. In fact, I'm looking at the depth chart right now. I think you can still see me on camera, but I'm looking at the depth chart right now. Let me give you the list. And these are not unfamiliar names to, especially a lot of football fans, especially to a lot of wagerers. Baker Mayfield, Case Keenum, both out. Kareem Hunt, out. Jarvis Landry, out. Anthony Schwartz, out. Austin Hooper, out. Jedrick Willis, their left tackle, out. Wyatt Teller, their all-pro right guard, out. That's on offense. On defense, Malik Jackson, questionable. Malik McDowell, out. Anthony Walker, middle linebacker, out. Tony Fields, out. Jacob Phillips, out on the depth chart. Ifeadi Odenigbo is out, backup linebacker, or backup defensive end. Mac Wilson, backup weak side linebacker, he's out. Troy Hill, backup cornerback, he's out. Grant Delpit, he's out. 3 of the 4 starting defensive players in the secondary, Ronnie Harrison, John Johnson III, Greg Newsom II, they're out. Jamie Gillen, the punter, out as well too. So you add that up, Nick Robinson, and you have a Las Vegas team who was 1-5 in their last 6 going to Cleveland. Nick Mullins, the former 49er and former Eagle, is going to start. They just signed Kyle Lauletta from the practice squad to be the backup quarterback. I don't know who the emergency quarterback would be. I would imagine it would have to be. I guess they'd run the ball. I guess it would have to be Nick Chubb or maybe
Would have been Landry.
Let's look at the key guys, though, that are going to be out, though. Jarvis Landry, Austin Hooper, and Wyatt Teller, 3 of the 4 starting defensive backs out. The Raiders have a pretty good offense. Their only win in the last 6 games was the Thanksgiving Day game at Dallas, which surprised the hell out of probably a lot of people in the country and around the world that the Raiders would go into Dallas and win on Thanksgiving Day. But where do you look? And Kevin Stefanski, by the way, the head coach, out as well, too. So that's going to be a big deal as well, too, as far as being on the sidelines. So is this a missed line? 3.5 with the Vegas Raiders at 38, the total. I can see the total, but I'm not so sure I want to take the Raiders on the road the way that the way that they've been playing. 1-5 overall in their last 6 and against the spread after a 5-2 start, 3-3 over and under. That 38.5 is even tough too, but 0-3 is a favorite. Last time they were favored on the road was the New York Giants game where they lost outright. Do we still look at the Raiders as a 3.5-point favorite, saying this is a bargain with all the guys out for Cleveland?
Well, last night I said it was going to be a barn burner. I think tonight's going to be tomorrow's going to be quite the opposite. I think it's going to be a slugfest. It's just going to be running with Chubb, Jacobs, and Dearness Johnson if he's even available. So I don't even know what the Browns are going to do. I'm surprised that they're even playing this game. I know Baker.
No, they're going to play the game. They're never going to.
Yeah, they won't postpone it. But I know Baker
they will never. They will never cancel a game. This is the NFL. No. They will never cancel a game.
They were the Browns went on social media and started complaining, but what can you do? It's the NFL. It's an association. They're gonna keep churning and they're gonna keep their wheels going. So I don't know how the Browns are even gonna keep up in this game. Maybe they're just gonna run Nick Chubb into the ground. But as a Raiders defensive coordinator, you can just imagine that they're just gonna run all game, especially in bad weather. Nick Mullins making his first start. I haven't seen him play since he's played with the Eagles and Niners. So he did have some magic for the Niners here and there, but I just don't see how the Browns can keep up with the Raiders. But Vegas must know something, and 3.5 isn't too many points, so I'm going to stay away from that one.
38 the total, so we'll see how it goes on that. Don't forget our social media selections every day during the week at 6 o'clock Eastern. The latest news, latest updates, NBA, NHL, all the COVID issues going on between all the other sports as well too. The Warriors and Celtics affected on the COVID issues as well tonight. We'll give you all the news at 6 o'clock Eastern on social media, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter as well too. All right, let's go through the ramifications of this game. Division-wise, the Raiders are 6-7. They're 3 games back in Kansas City, so the division's probably out. But you're looking at the Chargers, who are in the 5 spot. Denver is ahead of the Raiders. They both have 6 losses, even though the Chargers have played their 14th game. But Denver has 6 losses. The Chargers have 6 losses. Vegas has 7 losses. And you look at that in the expanded format, they are in the 11th spot. They're in the 12th spot behind Pittsburgh, Denver, Cincinnati, Cleveland. Buffalo is the last wild card team at 7-6. And then Indianapolis, who plays the second game tomorrow night, also at 7-6. And after the loss, the Chargers also have 6 losses too. So you're talking about only 1 game back between 5 and number 12. And I know the 17th game probably helps in the fact that they're going to have a 7th playoff team. But from the Raiders' standpoint, this is a huge game for the Raiders coming into tomorrow night.
It is a huge game. I think the Raiders desperately need a win, and I hope they don't get too cocky and looking at a Browns team that's very depleted, especially with the last game when they danced on the logo.
They have absolutely no right to be cocky.
Yeah,
a 1-5 last 6 start. There's no way. And this is the NFL, Nick, and you know this as well, and probably through your family and all your NFL years of watching. Nobody feels sorry for anybody in the professional ranks. Yeah, you want them to be healthy and you want everybody to be out of this COVID thing, but nobody's feeling sorry because this is livelihood going on right now. So the Raiders 3.5, 38. Here's the ramifications for the Cleveland Browns. This is a huge game for them as well too. They're 5-2 at home, so that's pretty good to start off. But they're 7-6 at home. They're only a game back of the Ravens for the AFC North title here. The Ravens haven't played that great. Lamar Jackson questionable. We'll get to that on the Sunday previews on the other side of the break. But 8-5, 7-6 for Cleveland. They're in the 8th spot overall. Cincinnati in the 9th spot, 7-6 as well. But this is a 1-game scenario or 1-game difference between Baltimore, Cleveland, Cincinnati, and actually a 1-game difference between Pittsburgh, who seems to be trending down too, because Pittsburgh's 6-6-1, and they're in last place. So I believe this is the only division where everybody is 500 or above. Yeah, Las Vegas is under 500. The NFC North, garbage there. Yeah. Yep. The AFC North, everybody 500 or above, with Pittsburgh in last place, 6-6-1. Everybody with 6 losses except for the Ravens, who lost last week to Cleveland. It's going to be very interesting for the Cleveland Browns. I mean, I think you said it right. We don't have the weather. I don't have the weather in front of me for Cleveland, but I got to think that Cleveland at home, they still got to feel pretty confident against a team that gives up a lot of yards on the ground, a lot of yards through the air. I don't know if Nick Mullins is going to be that guy, but Cleveland in 8th place, they're tied with Buffalo. They lose the tiebreaker out to Buffalo by Cleveland and Denver based on best win percentage. In conference games, division tiebreak was initially used to eliminate Cincinnati with Cleveland. Okay, so that makes Cleveland ahead of Cincinnati because they have the tiebreaker over them. Thus, Cincinnati is 9, Buffalo is 7, and those Cleveland Browns with 14 guys on COVID are in the 8th spot and second, tied for second in the AFC North. So what is Cleveland? I mean, we said Cleveland's probably going to run the ball. They're going to have to play tight defense. How do you compensate if you're the NFL? How do you compensate if you're the Cleveland Browns for 3 of your 4 DBs being out as well, too? 3 of your 4 starting DBs out as well, too.
Well, that's going to be the hardest part. I think their defense is going to have to step up in a big way. I think Garrett's going to have to get to the quarterback almost every play, so the defensive backs have a little more time to cover, or a little less time to cover. Sorry. So, I mean, they still have a really good line, and their linebackers are really good, but having no secondary is really hard. So I think we're going to see more blitzes from the Browns, and just their defense is going to play faster pace, just try to get to the quarterback as fast as they can. So try to knock Carr off his feet and not give him too much time to pick their secondary apart when they have 3 guys missing. And I think on offense, the Browns, again, are just going to run Chubb at least 20 to 30 times. I don't know how successful it's going to be given their 2 all-pro guards and their guard and tackle are out, especially how good they are. But I know Chubb is a beast, and they're going to trust him. So Mullins will get a few dump downs here and there, but I don't think they're going to be throwing 20 to 30 times. I think we're going to see more of the Mac Jones, New England 3 to 10 passes in this one.
David Njoku, the backup tight end for Austin Hooper, he's back as well, too. He was out for a week as well, too. Vasuvada party intern Nick Robinson. Big doings on Saturday for the NFL, Las Vegas at Cleveland. One thing the Raiders do have is they do have a good offense, and Derek Carr can throw the ball around a little bit, and they are pretty healthy from the offensive standpoint. So they may be able to move the ball on Cleveland if they can attack that secondary. Again, nobody's feeling sorry for anybody in the NFL, but if they can move the ball effectively on them through the air, I think that might be their best shot. But they have to definitely protect against the pass rush. Pass rush seems to be healthy, although their middle nose guy, Malik McDowell, is out as well, too, with COVID. All right, the second game of the day on Saturday, we said that Las Vegas and Cleveland is a huge game. If there's such a word as huger, this is a huger game for the Indianapolis Colts and the New England Patriots. Nobody's going to be thinking back to Manning versus Brady with Wentz and Mac Jones. But the fact is that the Patriots are 8-1 since they started off 1-3. They're 9-4. They dropped down to the number 2 spot overall only because Kansas City played and they've got their 10th win. The Patriots have the tiebreakers all over Kansas City, so a win will move them back up to the number 1 spot as well. And if Tennessee wins, they'll move back up to the number 2 spot, and Kansas City will drop to 3 because of the head-to-head between Tennessee, and Kansas City. So here's New England, 2.5-point underdog. The Colts are 7-6. They started off 1-4. They're 6-2 in their last 8. Carson Wentz has played better. Jonathan Taylor has been outstanding. 0-3 and 1-4 to start. 6-2 since. 3-2 is a favorite. 5-3 overs and unders. Some of the teams they've beaten haven't been great, but then they had a tough one against Baltimore. Then they had a tough one against Tampa Bay. Could have won both of those games as well, too. And Carson Wentz has picked it up a little bit. They are in the 6th spot overall, Nick, and this is how it works out now. They've got the tiebreak over Buffalo, Cleveland, Denver based on better conference record, 6-3 in the conference right now. If they win, they'll end up taking over the number 5 spot for the Chargers because they have the better conference record than the Chargers do, who are at 5-4 right now. So the fact is that this is a big game for them, considering they started 1-4. They could be in a number 5 seed if they win against New England. It's going to be tough to win against New England. We saw what they did on Monday night against Buffalo last week, and then they had their bye week last week as well too. So they're on a bye as well. They're coming off rest. And the Indianapolis Colts, Jonathan Taylor, obviously Bill Belichick knows his defense, probably be focused on Jonathan Taylor big time. And then they'll just have to figure out how to put pressure on Wentz. And they've been doing it. They went after Ryan Tannehill 3 weeks ago and forced a lot of fumbles out of him and their receivers as well too. So Colts started 0-3, 1-4 to start, 6-2 since. And then the overs and unders are 5-3 in their last 8 games in this hot streak for the Indianapolis Colts. What do you think?
Well, Belichick as an underdog is always enticing. I know Patriots plus 2.5. That's an interesting one right there. But I know Belichick also, like you said, always shuts down the number one player on the offense of the other team. So I think he's going to be all over Jonathan Taylor. I think he's going to send all-out blitzes just in order to knock him off of his feet, get him behind the line, not let him chug his feet and get more than 5 yards in front, because when Taylor gets going, it's hard to take that man down. I mean, he can run 22 miles per hour and juke you and run through you. He's pretty much a mini Derrick Henry out there. So I think the Colts are going to have to use Wentz a lot more than they think. I think when it took them a few weeks, like you said, they were 1-4 to start. I think it took them a few weeks to get Wentz integrated into the offense. And now that that's happened, they've took a big leap forward. And I think we saw that last week with a great performance against the Bucs, although they lost. I mean, it was a great game the other week. So I think this is going to be a really good game. And I think, like I said, I just think Belichick's going to be all out going against Taylor in this one. So I think Wentz is going to have to step up, throwing to Doolin, Pittman, other guys.
1-3 for New England to start the year, 8-1 since. They're 2-1 as an underdog this year. Their one of the underdog games was against Tampa Bay and Tom Brady at home. They lost that game by 2 points. They covered that game. And then the underdog, their other one was the underdog last week at Buffalo, where they won 14-10. And they were another underdog against the Cowboys. They were a 3.5-point underdog at home against the Cowboys. Cowboys got an overtime touchdown. Otherwise, that would have been another cover for New England as a dog. So they do play well as a dog. Their last 9 games, this is the point differential they've had, Nick. 8-1, 279 points scored, 130 allowed. They are, if I went back to the standings here, I just saw the number. They are, I'll give this to you right now, 350 points scored, 200 points allowed, 130 of those in these last 9 weeks. The last 4 games, they've only allowed 30 points, and they've scored 120 points. 2 shutouts, the New Orleans game, the Buffalo game, and then the beatdown of Cleveland, 45-7. And then they held Atlanta to 3 points. They held Atlanta to no points in that stretch as well, too. So 120 they've scored, 30 points allowed, 120 scored in the last 4 games, and then plus 149 in the previous 9 games, and they're plus 150 overall. So basically 1-3 with a point differential of plus 1 in their first 5 games. Where do the Indianapolis Colts attack the New England Patriots right now? Because I can't see it.
It's hard to attack the Patriots. I mean, Belichick always has a top defense, and consistently year after year, he just finds a way to find guys to play the positions that he needs them to play. It's pretty much team football. It's no one's about themselves. It's all about the team. And like we saw, Belichick had zero hesitance letting go of the all-pro corner Stephon Gilmore, because in the back of his mind, he knew J.C. Jackson's got that same talent. He could just come out there and be that number 1 corner. And he has been that. So whatever Belichick does on defense, it works, and it has been working this year, and I think it'll continue to work. So I think you have to attack them in the passing game on slants, on quick passes, get your guys the ball in space as fast as you can, as quickly as you can, and just march on them slowly. And it's kind of hard to throw the ball deep on these corners and safeties, especially when you got Judon, Van Noy, these pass rushers that can get to you in 3 seconds. So I think you got to get some screen passes going, just some quick dump offs here and there to get the offensive flowing.
This is the Make the Money and Run podcast every Monday at 3 Eastern. Kent Sterling will be our guest of Indianapolis Sports Talk out there. He'll come on at 3 o'clock Eastern, 12 o'clock on the West Coast. Thursday and Fridays at 1 Eastern. Yesterday we were on as well, too. Charlie off the last couple of days, but this is a Friday football show. Thanks to everybody on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter Live. Download and subscribe if you miss any of the live broadcasts. Apple, Google, iHeart, Spotify, SoundCloud, anywhere you see the logo up there in the corner, you can download and subscribe. We really appreciate all the support we get. Don't forget, every day, social media selections, 6 o'clock Eastern. Check us out on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. We'll have all the avenues, all the latest news, all the selections for that particular day. And then on Saturdays, we go 3 times on Saturday. College basketball in now, so the times are a little different. Still 11 o'clock in the morning Eastern on Saturday, 3:30 for part 2, and then 6 o'clock for part 3 for the NCAA basketball, NBA, NHL, and also the college football bowl games. We haven't forgotten about bowl games yet. We'll get to that. By the way, Toledo, Middle Tennessee State tied at 14. Toledo minus 10.5 in that game, at least where I had it from. And Toledo with the ball right now, approaching halftime, 5:26 to go. So social media selections 3 times on Saturday, twice on Sunday for NFL football, noon Eastern, and then 3:30 Eastern for the NFL. Of course, NBA, NHL, college football, all that there. And, of course, we'll be live at the Britannia Arms in Capitola. Come join us. 10 years now on the shores of the Pacific Ocean, located on the end of the Capitola Village. Facebook.com/Britannia Arms Capitola, 831-464-2583. And also we have the Britannia Arms of Cupertino. If you can't make it down there, you can join us on our link. We'll have the link up. Ask questions, make comments, whatever you want to do as well, too. And don't forget Super Draft Pro is our new partner. Download the app on any of your devices or log in at superdraftpro.com/VPartySports. Get yourself a subscription. Get in there. Real opportunities to win real dollars, real chance at real community. A lot different than the other fantasy football sites as well, too. And like I said, we'll be live at the Britannia Arms Capitola, full preview of Week 15 Sunday. The NFL Sunday Ticket all day, the best British food and pub on the ocean in Northern California, the Capitola Village there. All right, when we come back in 30 seconds, we will hit the rest of the NFL. We'll kind of give you an overview of all the games. We'll go into it in a little detail. And then, of course, we'll have the full preview on Sunday before kickoff. But 30 seconds, we'll come back with the Sunday football games, and we'll give you an update on the bowl games. We'll talk about the 5 other bowl games that are going to take place today and Saturday on the Make the Money and Run podcast, the Friday football show. Charlie out, intern Nick Robinson in, Vasi Vadaparty here as your host. Back in 30 seconds. Welcome back to the Make the Money and Run podcast. This is the Friday football show for December 17th. We're 1 week away from Christmas. How about that? A lot of Christmas wishes out there in the NFL for sure. And the bowl games, of course, the CFP semifinals on New Year's Eve with Alabama and Cincinnati and Georgia and Michigan on New Year's Eve. For us on the West Coast, it's early. It's going to be right around New Year's Eve. New Year's when the ball drops for everybody on the East Coast when the Orange Bowl finishes up around 11:30 on the East Coast. Sponsored by the Britannia Arms of Cupertino and the Britannia Arms of Capitola. We'll be there live on Sunday for the full preview of the show, 9:45 a.m. Pacific time. We'll get all 7 games in before kickoff, and then we'll preview the afternoon games after the break on there. And then don't forget, we have our social media selections every day at 6 o'clock. All right, we did the review of the Chiefs and Chargers game. We previewed the 2 Saturday games. Now we get to Sunday. Lots of things going on Sunday. The Miami Dolphins, we'll start with them because they're interesting to me right now. They are playing the Jets. They're on a 5-game winning streak. The line is 9.5, 41 for the Dolphins. 5-game winning streak. That might be a lot of points. They don't score a lot of points. They're coming off their bye. They're only 1 loss behind all the teams, all the way to the Chargers. Remember, they got 7 losses. The Chargers now with their 6th loss. They're 116-55, 3-0 against the spread. And as a favorite, the 5-game winning streak, I should say, 116-55, they've outscored their opponents. They've got a really good defense, Nick. And if they can figure out how to put some points on there, they can make some hay in this AFC with everybody beating up on each other.
I like Miami a lot. Their defense has been really stout recently, starting with Javon Holland. He's been a beast, and there's a couple other young pieces that they have that are just outstanding so far. Phillips has been really good, that D end. So Miami's been really, really solid, and I think their run game's been better. Gaskin's been more healthy recently, and I think Tua's been settling in from that injury. Every game, you could just see him being more comfortable. He just looks better. So I like Dolphins a lot. I know the Jets are just probably tanking as much as they can to get a better pick at this point because they're the Jets and they don't really have any point. They don't really have a reason to try to win this game. So I think the Dolphins they're playing well and they should continue the streak on to 6.
Yeah, I'd be very surprised if the Jets came back and won. It certainly would hurt the Dolphins' chances in any playoff reach that they have, being only one game back for all those teams from 5 until 11, and then the Raiders are right there at 6 and 7. They lose the tiebreaker to the Raiders. The Raiders beat them early in the year in Vegas. All right, move to the NFC East now. The Dallas Cowboys, 11-point favorites, 44.5. Dallas 9-4. They're the 4 seed in the NFC. They lead their division. The NFC East, they'll probably win that division, although I wouldn't count out Philadelphia as of yet. Philadelphia and Washington, though Taylor Heineke just got put on the COVID list, so it's going to be very interesting for Washington this weekend, and we'll get to that in a second. But Tony Pollard questionable, DeMarcus Lawrence questionable for the Cowboys. They started off 6-1. They're 3-3 in their last 3, including that loss on Thanksgiving Day. They barely came out of Washington after having a big lead last week, and then they played okay against New Orleans 2 Thursdays before, and the 27-17. But we know what New Orleans is a mess right now, so you just got to take it. I don't want to take it for granted because this is an NFC East game. The Giants still play them very tough. Barkley's questionable. Daniel Jones questionable, but it looks like he'll be out as well. He might be out, so that might be another Mike Glennon start for them. But 11 points for Dallas at New York. That's first of all, I don't like 11 points in the NFL to begin with, but now you put them on the road. That's really tough to go by. And then 44.5. We know the Giants can't score. The Cowboys have a pretty good offense, but that still might be too many points for the Giants in terms of the 11, Nick.
Yeah, the Giants' offensive line is still atrocious. They're just finding their way, trying to get pieces in that line to help Barkley run. But, I mean, the Cowboys is just they looked great last week. Not the best, but they did their part to win. And I know the Giants just don't look good at all. Mike Glennon is pretty terrible, if I must say. I mean, he's a solid backup, but they just can't put points up on the board. I know their coaching system has been a little on and off, and they just don't look like they're a complete team right now. So 11's a lot of points, and I never like laying 11 points, but it's hard to go against the Cowboys, especially how bad the Giants have looked in the past.
I believe if the Cowboys win, they will actually win the NFC East, and they will fall no lower than 4th in that division. All right, we move on. This is another huge game. We just talked about the Pittsburgh Steelers that lost to Minnesota. They've had 10 days off to get themselves kind of righted back, figure out how they can do this. They only have 6 losses. We know number 5 seed Chargers have 6 losses. Then you look at Buffalo, and you look at Cincinnati, and you look at Cleveland. Pittsburgh's right there, and then who am I missing in there? That's the 6th seed. The Colts also have 6 losses as well too. So 6-1. That tie came back to kind of bite them in the behind with the Lions. They could be 7-6. They should be 7-6, and probably have some of the tiebreakers on some of these other teams that they would be tied with. And so they are on life support right now, especially after that Vikings game. The Titans are in the 3 seed right now. They will, if they win, they will be moved back up to the 2 seed. If the Patriots win, they will move back up to the 2 seed because they beat Kansas City early in the year. It's a pick 'em, and 43 for Tennessee. Titans are 6-2 in their last 8. They lost to Houston. They lost at home. They lost to New England on the road. You have a slumper once in a while. So Houston came in and beat them. Kind of surprised them. The New England game, I don't think surprised a lot of people, except for how bad the difference was because of all the turnovers they had. But some of their wins that the Tennessee Titans have had, and mind you, this is also after Derrick Henry is gone too. So they've been doing it. They've been doing it with Tannehill, and they've been doing it with Julio Jones, and AJ Brown has been out as well too. But they've got guys on that team, and their defense has played pretty well. Wins include the Bills, the Colts, and the Chiefs in this run that they've had going 9-4 this year, Nick.
Yeah, well, the Titans have looked a lot better than I expected without Henry. I know Tannehill's really stepped up, like you said. Julio's been out. AJ Brown is out for a while, but I just think they've been great, and I think they can continue this run, especially how Pittsburgh that last game must have hurt for Pittsburgh. I mean, being down 29-0 at half and then coming back and barely losing. Some would say because of Claypool's celebration, but you can't really blame the guy. I mean, there's many factors that come into that, but I just think Pittsburgh kind of got a little momentum
Time
from
and
that.
situation. You know what? We haven't talked about that because you're that generation. It's time and situation. And I
Uh-huh.
watched the replay again, and you're down by 8 and you're playing for your playoff line. Yeah, he may not be 100% responsible. He's not responsible for them being down 24-0 at the half. That's for sure.
Mhm.
29-7 after 3 quarters, but you have to be responsible for your part of it. And I believe that was part of it because they might have had 2 more plays if in fact they got the ball back to the official, because they only left 2 seconds. And if they get the touchdown, all the Steelers bettors would be happy too that day as well too. So that's just something to look at. You got to know time and situation, especially with the running clock. But Tennessee Titans, this is a big game. They're on the road. They don't play great on the road, but they've done well. They've had losses this year, but they've also beaten Indianapolis on the road. They've had some good wins, and they've also had wins against teams that weren't very good as well too. But I like the way Ryan Tannehill's playing. I like Mike Vrabel a lot. Pittsburgh, I think they're trending down. It's hard to say, but the way they gave up all those points against Minnesota, you got to think that if that's the way it's gone right now, maybe they'll snap back up. Now that Ben has made a decision, everybody knows that situation. Nobody's asking anymore about it because Roethlisberger's made his decision. But you got to think that Tennessee has got a chance to run the ball on Pittsburgh. They gave up a lot of rushing yards to Dalvin Cook. We'll get to Minnesota in a second, but Dalvin Cook on a separated shoulder had 205 yards, or actually probably more than that, if I remember that. And you got to think that Tennessee, and by the way, Ryan Tannehill, as we all know, if we've watched football, Ryan Tannehill is a very good running quarterback, and he will get 1 to 2 touchdowns every few weeks on the ground by himself. So that's a good game for them. Again, a lot of ramifications for Tennessee in terms of seeding. A pick 'em. Steelers on life support. Take it away.
Yeah, well, I think the Titans. I like the Titans in this one. I think their run game has been a lot better than I expected without Henry. Foreman's been good. Hilliard's been good. There's just a few guys that have popped out because their line is a lot better than people expected. It's not all Henry that does it. He's an all-pro back. He's a generational talent, but that line, that's what gets him humming. And Tannehill has looked great. His RPO is a lot better than people think because people don't expect him to take the ball and run. You expect Henry, Foreman, them to get the ball, and he just sneakily runs and for 5-yard touchdown almost every other week. It's crazy. He has a lot of rushing touchdowns. So I definitely like the Titans in this one, and I think they can pull away. And it's definitely a big one that they need, and I think they'll step up to the pressure.
All right, not a lot needs to be said about this game other than the story about Urban Meyer being fired. Terrible circumstances for Urban Meyer. A lot of things coming out now about this, but they're both 2-11. Talking about the Jacksonville Jaguars, Houston Texans. I think the Jaguars might have more talent than the Texans right now. David Culley, the first-year coach, after 27 years as an assistant, he came into a tough situation with the whole Deshaun Watson scenario going into it. They traded Mark Ingram back to the Saints. They don't really have a lot of guys on that defense that have stopped a lot of teams. Trevor Lawrence has 9 touchdowns and 14 interceptions. The Titans shut them out last week 20-0, and Lawrence had 4 interceptions. But I still like Trevor Lawrence. I like Jacksonville. I like some of the pieces that they have. I think maybe with this Urban Meyer situation being extricated from the area, from the inside of the locker room and the inside of the facilities, that maybe guys can relax a little bit. And if you can relax a little bit, you might play better. And I think that Trevor Lawrence certainly is there. And you mentioned James Robinson yesterday on the show as well, too. You got to think that that's going to be a case for them to be able to maybe come up 4.5-point favorites. Somebody in Vegas thinks that this Urban Meyer situation is going to ease them up because they're 4.5-point favorites. That's a lot for a 2-11 team.
I 100% agree. I think the Jags are going to play freely. They're going to play loose. They're going to play with a lot of weight taken off their back. And I think Houston doesn't really have too much to play for right now. I know both teams are 2-11. This one's kind of like which team wants to win to take their chances away from the number 1 pick. So it depends on which it might be a tank fest. We'll see. It might be a scrappy game, but it's definitely going to be something I'm not watching that much, and we'll see how the end score is. But I definitely like the Jaguars in this one, especially given that they have a new system, hopefully, and they'll be rallying behind their new coach.
All right, last one before we go to break here to the later games. The Arizona Cardinals are a 13-point favorite at Detroit, 47.5. We saw what the Cardinals did on Monday night. They lost to the Rams at home. That series is now split right down the middle, 1-1. The Rams have moved to one game within the Cardinals in the NFC West. Arizona has actually dropped down to the number 3 seed. Tampa Bay has taken over the number 2 seed, with Green Bay being up there first. One thing about Arizona, they haven't played well at home. They've got 3 losses at home now. They're undefeated on the road, and all the road games that they've had have all been double-digit wins, and that's something that has never happened in the NFL. And here are the Arizona Cardinals with double-digit wins on the road, 13 points to a Detroit Lions team who's got some players. They played well in a couple of games. They're covered like 5 games this year. Last week they got blown out by Denver on the road, but they beat Minnesota the week before for their first and only win. 1-11-1 is their record. They had the tie with Pittsburgh, as we talked about before. But this looks like to be Cardinals double digits on the road for every game anyway. So you got to think, and that's indoors. Kyler Murray indoors with all those receivers. No DeAndre Hopkins. He's going to be out for the rest of the year. They determined that the other day. So they're going to have to go to Rondell Moore and guys like that. Christian Kirk, A.J. Green is going to be a big part of this again. And they're going to have to get some play out of the tight end as well too, Nick. So talk about Arizona and Detroit a little bit.
Yeah, I think Arizona is definitely going to take it out on Detroit, especially after that loss last week, that tough loss that they had in a crucial divisional game. But I just can't see Detroit keeping this close. They don't have Hawkinson. They don't have any Swift. Probably is doubtful. I think he's questionable, but he's more on the doubtful side. I don't know why they would play him at this point with a lingering injury and them having one win. But I can't see Arizona not running away with this one. I think Arizona's gonna crush them. They are great on the road, and I know James Conner's questionable, so we'll see about that one. That's the only thing that is a little scary in my mind. But I know Kyler's he's just gonna sling it all over them to Rondale Moore, AJ Green, like you said, a couple other guys. So I love the Cardinals in this one. Detroit doesn't really have much to play for, and if Detroit wins, they then jump ahead of Texans and Jaguars, assuming one of them lose. So they'll jump ahead of one of them. So that would just hurt them for the number 1 pick.
Boy, if Houston and Jacksonville ended up in a tie, that would be very interesting. Considering the year we've had the last couple of years, it might not be very surprising if that happens as well, too. All right, this is the Make the Money and Run podcast. Sivada Party intern Nick Robinson, Charlie O out for the day. He'll be back with us next week as well, too, on assignment. Thank everybody on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter for joining us as well. We're here 3 times a week, and then we're sponsored by the Britannia Arms of Capitola, Cupertino, and also Super Draft Pro. Download the app or log in at superdraftpro.com/VPartySports. All right. Thanks again to everybody on Facebook. When we come back, 30 seconds, we'll talk about the late afternoon games, some big ones in San Francisco, Denver, and Tampa Bay to talk about, as well as a Monday night game between the Vikings, who need it as well, and the Chicago Bears. So back in 30 seconds with the Make the Money and Run podcast with intern Nick Vasivada Party here with you on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. All right, welcome back to the Make the Money and Run podcast, sponsored by the Britannia Arms of Cupertino and Capitola, and also Super Draft Pro. Don't forget, we'll be in Capitola on Sunday live, 9:45 Pacific time. Try and get 9:30. We'll let you know on the social media today and tomorrow, and Sunday as well too. If we can get, we'll do a full preview of the 7 early games, and then after the break, after kickoff starts, then we'll do the full preview of the afternoon games. Speaking of which, let's go on to the late afternoon games. No line yet on the Baltimore-Green Bay game. Lots of injuries going in that game. Lamar Jackson, obviously the big one, questionable with his ankle injury that he suffered last week against the Cleveland Browns. Aaron Jones is possibly out. He's questionable. Aaron Rodgers is questionable with that toe. They've got a couple receiver issues and some defensive issues that they've got to take care of as well too. So no line on that game. If we had to choose, let's see. I think it's Green Bay. Is it Baltimore at? Excuse me. Is it Baltimore at Green Bay or Green Bay at Baltimore? I have to look at that. Let me see this. I think it's Ravens at Packers. Yeah, Packers at Ravens. The game's on Fox.
It's at Baltimore.
So it's at it's at Baltimore. So I would say right now there is an ESPN line that says the Packers are favored by 6.5, and that's probably without Lamar Jackson. Let me go through the injury list here while we have the game on our mind. Aaron Rodgers questionable. Kenny Clark, the defensive tackle, is out. Valdez-Scantling questionable. Aaron Jones questionable for the Baltimore Ravens. Lamar Jackson questionable. Marquise Brown questionable. Chuck Clark, their hard-hitting safety, is out. Calais Campbell is questionable. And Tylan Wallace, one of their backup wide receivers, is also questionable. So we'll go with Green Bay 6.5 right now. My site does not have it yet. So we'll go with either or. And if you can find it, let us know. Send us a comment on what you get for the Packers and Ravens game if you have it as well too. All right, let's start out in San Francisco. A huge game for both teams this week. We live in the Bay Area. We hear all the news about the 49ers. They're 7-6. They got a big win in overtime against the Bengals last week, thanks to Brandon Ayuk's overtime touchdown to cover the spread and also win the game and keep them in the number 6 seed. They're behind the Rams by 2 games now, as the Rams are 9-4 coming into the weekend. But the 6th seed is where the 49ers are at. They're favored by 9 over Atlanta, 46.5 the total. The overtime win against Cincinnati. Of course, they lost to Seattle the week before. Atlanta beat Carolina as a dog last week. Cam Newton and P.J. Walker were rotating quarterbacks for Matt Rule and the Panthers, and they were trending downward, even though they were at the same record at that point. But here's the thing about the Falcons. They play better on the road. Even I heard their radio analyst yesterday on local radio here talking to the 49ers guys. They play better on the road, and I don't know if it's the one-for-all mentality or whatever it is they go through. But 5-2 against the spread on the road. They played well. San Francisco 4-1 in their last 5. They've covered every one except for the Seattle game the last week. But the Falcons are in 10th. Let me go back to the standings here because I have that. This is very important here from the standpoint of the Falcons have some tiebreakers to work with. They're not going to catch Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay is 10-3, so they're 4 back, and that there's only 3 left. So Tampa Bay will win the division pretty much outright unless something happens with New Orleans, because New Orleans does have a tiebreaker on them. So, and they play. We'll get to that game in a second. Tampa Bay, New Orleans. Tampa Bay owes New Orleans from the loss a few weeks back. So Atlanta is in 10th. They're tied with New Orleans, who are behind them. They're in the same division, so they get the tiebreaker there for beating them. Philadelphia is at 6-7. They're in 9th place. Minnesota is 6-7. They play Monday night against the Bears. And Washington, who just lost their quarterback to COVID, is at 6-7. And then the 49ers are 7-6, 2 back of the Rams for the wild card spot. So 9-point favorite, 46.5. Atlanta plays well on the road. The Super Bowl year, I worked a game for national radio when the Falcons came in during the 49ers Super Bowl year as a 10.5-point favorite, and Julio Jones got the game-winning touchdown with no time left on the clock. And it was very interesting to see how well they played for their coaches in 2019 to try and keep them from getting fired. They're kind of in the same scenario, and Matt Ryan's an elite quarterback, and I know people jump on Matt Ryan, but Matt Ryan can do anything that he wants to do on the football field if he has some pieces around him. And right now he does. They're playing better. The Carolina game was very impressive to me, even though Carolina's may not be very good. But you cannot take the Falcons lightly if you're the 49ers, and you got to figure out a way to control the clock, not make mistakes, because if you let Russell Gage and their running game go at it, they're going to have a tough time. Pitts at tight end is another weapon that the Falcons have, and they can rush the passer a little bit as well too. And they got 2 interceptions against Cam Newton last week. One was run back for a touchdown, and we know out here living in the Bay Area, all you got to do is turn on radio, and Garoppolo will. They're afraid he'll turn the ball over every once in a while. So this is a lot of points, and they can't take them lightly, Nick, talking about the 49ers.
Yeah, the Falcons are a really scrappy team. I know in previous years they always play the Niners very, very well. As you mentioned in 2019, the Julio touchdown, and a few years prior to that, we had the Navarro Bowman pick six to bring the Niners to the playoffs. So it always seems to have some implications on the playoffs, and it's always a great game. So I feel like 9 is too many points. I know I have a feeling that the Niners are going to win, but I think it's going to be a field goal to 7 points. So I think it's going to be a closer game than people anticipate. And I know Cordero Patterson, man, he is a beast. He could do
That's
everything.
what I was thinking of. Yeah, you're
anything.
Right.
He can catch the ball. He can run the ball. He can play damn safety if he wants to. So put him out there wherever you want. He'll play. So as much as I think the Niners will win, I think it'll be closer than people think, and I think it's going to be a great game.
By the way, this is huge. If Atlanta goes to 7-7, they will, and Philadelphia loses, Minnesota loses on Monday night, Washington with no quarterback loses as well. I think they're who are the Washington football team? That line's not out either. By the way, we should note that as well too. Washington and the Eagles, that's a big game this Sunday as well. There's no line on that game on my site because of the Taylor Heineke situation, but you got to think the Eagles, according to ESPN, they're a 12-point favorite, but no Taylor Heineke. That's going to be really tough for them to overtake the Eagles. So there are 2 games off the board right now. Washington and the Eagles are that. But if they move up, talking about Atlanta, if they move up to 7-7, and they have and the Eagles or the Washington football team, one is going to lose, so they'll be able to overtake them. And then they'll be right there with the 49ers because they'll be 7-7. Oh, and by the way, they just beat the 49ers. So they'll have the head-to-head on the 49ers, and they'll move ahead of the San Francisco 49ers into that 6th spot. So this is a 4-swing jump here for the Atlanta Falcons. And it might as well be a playoff game for them because if they lose, it's probably going to go the other way, Nick. So I give this game a 5-star game based on the scenario for the Atlanta Falcons. And, of course, the 49ers want to maintain. They've got the Rams later. If they want to go for that 5 seed, they're good enough to do it because they've got the Rams again at the end of the year, who they play very well.
100%. I think it's going to be a great game. I know both teams have a lot on the line, and I know both have a pretty good offense, and even their defense has been stepping up recently. I know Kittle's been amazing the last 2 weeks. He has, 25 receptions and 300-something yards. It's ridiculous. Debo's turning into a running back. On the other side, we have Patterson, who's also a wide receiver and running back. So we kind of got 2 dual threat players on both sides. So it's going to be a really fun one to watch for fantasy football purposes, for playoff implications, for just good football. So I'll be tuning into that one for sure.
All right, Vasu Vadaparty, intern Nick on the Make the Money and Run Friday football show for the 17th of December. A couple more games to go through in the NFL, and we'll just run down the bowl games before we get out of here on this Friday edition, 1 week before Christmas Eve. Hope everybody's having a good holiday season so far. The Denver Broncos coming off that big win on the Lions. They were struggling. We saw what they did 2 weeks ago against Kansas City. Kansas City's defense has played better, but the offense came out to play last week. 3 versus Cincinnati at home, 44 the total. The Broncos, with, like I said, the win over the Lions. They are in 10th with 4 teams from 6 to 11. I'm sorry, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 6 teams from 6 to 11. Los Angeles and the Chargers lost, puts them at 6 losses too. Cincinnati's lost 2 straight games at home, but now they go on the road here. Both teams are 7-6. Denver right now is at 10th. Cincinnati at 9th. Obviously, the winner will either keep their spot if it's Cincinnati or overtake the Bengals if they do. But if they get to 8 wins, all of a sudden they are right there with the Chargers. And this is a Denver Bronco team who we didn't think had a very good offense. And their running game was a little lack, and their defense is giving up a lot of points. And they were having a tough time. And they're 7-6 with Teddy Bridgewater as their quarterback, Melvin Gordon as a running back. Bradley Chubb on the defensive line has had himself a good year from that standpoint. But you're talking about, like we just talked about the Falcons, a possible 5-spot move. The Denver Broncos could move all the way up to 5 because they lost to the Chargers, so they're going to have one more game. So they'll move up to 6. They won't have the 5 spot because the Chargers have the tiebreak. But that's still from 10 to 6 in 1 week. If the Patriots beat the Colts, if Buffalo loses, and Philly, who's Buffalo playing this week? I forgot. They may not have a line either.
Panthers, Buffalo Panthers.
Buffalo and the Panthers. Yeah, we didn't get to that game. We
Minus
didn't get to
12
that
for the
game.
Bills.
Yeah, we didn't get to that game. They didn't know the quarterback. So there's 3 games off the board now, the Bills and Panthers. But on Sunday at 12:45 Eastern, 9:45 Pacific, we'll have all the lines. We'll have all the injury reports. They come out 90 minutes before the game starts. So, but if you got lines, make comments to us. Let us know what you think on those games. If those 3 games you have somewhere on the board for you. So give us your thought real quick here, Nick, on Denver and Cincinnati. 4-spot jump for Denver. And also it could be a 3-spot jump, including a division for Cincinnati if the Ravens lose.
This is going to be another really close game. I think this might even be a little sneaky shootout that people don't expect, and I think the over 44 might be a nice little take right there. But I know the people didn't think the Donkeys, as in Denver, they didn't think they would be too good this year. They thought they would, especially after their start and having Teddy Bridgewater at quarterback. Not really sure who was going to start between him and Drew Lock, but their run game has been really impressive, especially Melvin Gordon looks to be revived. And this new kid, Javonte Williams, is an absolute monster.
He is favorite. He's your player prop bet.
He's leading the league in yards after contact as a rookie in limited amount of touches in a 50-50 split. So that's just impressive. And I think the Bengals can't really cover the rush. So I think the Denver's going to run all over the Bengals. And then on the other hand, I think the Bengals are going to throw to Chase, Boyd, all their weapons, Higgins, as in a lot. So I think it's going to be a high-scoring game. On the Denver side, they're going to be rushing the ball. The Bengals, they're going to be throwing. So it's going to be really entertaining.
If Cincinnati wants to control the ball, they're going to have to get Joe Mixon back in the mix here, because if they fall behind and have to throw, there have been a lot of games in the last 4 weeks where Joe Burrow has turned the ball over. The Bengals have turned the ball over, the 2 straight losses to the Chargers and to the 49ers at home, 2 games they probably should have won, probably feel like they should have won to be 9-4 and probably atop the AFC North with the way the Ravens are playing right now. But that AFC North, we said all the teams above 500. This is a huge game. If the Ravens lose, they've got the tiebreaker on the Baltimore Ravens for the big win that they had early in the year, and I believe they play them again later in the year. So Denver 3-44 against Cincinnati. Okay, so we said 3 games off the board, so we're going to go right to the night game on Sunday night. Tampa Bay 11, 46.5 versus New Orleans. New Orleans definitely trending downward. They beat them early in the year with Taysom Hill, now with Trevor Siemian at quarterback after Jameis Winston got hurt. Taysom Hill was on injured reserve. At that point, the Bucs are now in the number 2 spot after Arizona's loss based on strength of victory. If you ever want to Google the NFL tiebreaker procedures, if you need to fall asleep at night, there's 9 different rules that go for tiebreakers for division, for conference. If you have 2 teams fighting out for a wild card and they're in the division, you apply the division tiebreaker. If they're out of division, then you apply the conference tiebreaker, and it goes from there. And strength of victory is one of them, meaning the teams that you play, the records of the teams that you play, what their winning percentage is. And that's one of the tiebreakers. So Tampa Bay has won 4 straight. New Orleans still in the playoff hunt. They're right there with the Saints. They're right there with the Vikings. They're right there with the Washington football team. Same scenario. They might lose a couple of tiebreakers. I believe the Eagles beat them, so they might lose a tiebreaker to the Eagles. But this could be a 3-spot jump for New Orleans as well, too, if they can figure out how to play against Tampa Bay. It is in Florida. It is in the Golden Sombrero. 11 seems kind of low based on how Tampa Bay has been playing lately. 46.5 versus the Saints. They came off that big win against Buffalo last week as a 3.5-point favorite with the overtime touchdown, much to my chagrin, as I said earlier. But here's Tom Brady, 10-3, second year in a row for Tampa Bay, potentially Super Bowl champion again, and he's got a very disabled New Orleans team, for lack of a better word.
Tampa Bay is absolutely rolling. Tom Brady is the favorite for MVP right now, which just absolutely blows my mind at age 44. But I can't say I'm too surprised in this pandemic world we live in today. But, you know, the Saints just intrigue me to the point where they play down to their competition when they play kind of like poor teams. But when they play against these stars, they just play up to their competition and they somehow make it a close game. It's always a shootout. So I think 11 might be a lot of points, but then again, Tampa Bay and Tom are just absolutely rolling right now, and it's hard to go against them. So this one's going to be hard for me, but it's hard to pick either way because Now with Taysom, at least the Saints look a little bit better than they did with Simeon, although they did beat Tampa Bay with Simeon. But it's also hard to go against the Bucs on this one. So it's going to be, I think it's going to be a better game than people expect. I don't think it's going to be a blowout.
Nick Robinson, Vasuvada party here. Our intern Nick, Charlie O out. We'll do a lot more preview on Monday night of the Bears and Vikings. But again, this goes back to the same scenario. 5.5-point favorite for the Minnesota Vikings at Chicago. They're tied with the 4 other teams that we mentioned, the Washingtons, the Philadelphias, the Atlantas, and the New Orleans. Again, and Washington, San Francisco beat Minnesota. Washington beat Minnesota. That's why they're ahead of them. A couple of other tiebreakers that go Minnesota's way if they can win. All these teams at 6-7, Nick, and we'll do a lot of preview on Monday for this game because it is Monday night, and we'll be back at 3 o'clock on Monday, 3 o'clock Eastern on Monday. But if you get to 7-7, it's not that far off from being in a playoff spot in this NFC because right now that's the way it's going, and everybody's trending that way. Now the Eagles and the Washington football team will play each other, so somebody might have 8 losses at that point. That might be an elimination game for them, but everybody else is playing somebody out of division, and this is a big game. You look at those 5 teams that are all at 6-7 right now. It's huge, and Minnesota 5.5-point favorite. I don't know if I'd favor them by 5.5 on the road at Chicago. That's a division game, 44.5. Justin Fields did some good things last week. They had a big lead on the Bears. But again, Aaron Rodgers, number 12, the bane of my Chicago Bears fandom for the last 14 years, has turned its ugly head again. Green Bay, the number 1 seed, with Tampa Bay now number 2, and Arizona number 3, Dallas at number 4 in the NFC as far as division leaders go. Minnesota coming off that 36-28 win. Dalvin Cook came off the separated shoulder. Holy cow, 205 yards when everybody thought he might be gone for the rest of the year. Of course, a lot of that had to do with the Pittsburgh defense as well, too. But just give me a quick thumbnail on Chicago, Minnesota, and Minnesota's chances in terms of that whole logjam of 6 and 7 teams.
Yeah, I think this will be an interesting one. I'm not going to count out Chicago. I think they have some value as underdogs in this one. The only thing is I'm kind of fearing for their corners, especially how good Devontae Adams did last week. I think Justin Jefferson might mirror that performance, but I definitely think Chicago has a chance to be an upset here. And yeah. I don't think Minnesota can be too heavy of favorites given how well Justin Fields played against Aaron Rodgers last week.
And by the way, let me throw this out. Not that it's any rocket science or anything like that. Devontae Adams has number 12 thrown to him.
Yeah.
And Justin Jefferson has number 8 thrown to him, and they're a little different at quarterback. I don't need to mention names, but I'm pretty sure everybody knows who I'm talking about from a quarterback standpoint from Green Bay and Minnesota. There's a little difference there. They don't have the running game right now with Aaron Jones, although A.J. Dillon's going pretty good, but they don't have the running game that Minnesota has. So I got a feeling that if they can figure out how to run the ball, then it might be a little different. And certainly will take pressure off Kirk Cousins on Monday night, especially with that primetime record that he has. He added one more win to that record with the horrible Steelers defense there is. All right. That's going to do it for the NFL. Let's just hit the college games real quick before we get out of here. A lot of bowl games. Let me give you the update on the Toledo Middle Tennessee State game. It's 17-14 at the half. Toledo 10.5 for 11-point favorite. The total is 49. It was 3-0 after one quarter, and then they've come out and scored 4 touchdowns in the second quarter. So 49 may get hit. 17-14. I have Toledo minus 10.5. I put that on the preview on the post. Don't forget our social media selection post at 6 o'clock Eastern, all the latest news and our selections for Friday. And then 3 times on Saturday, twice on Sunday. Northern Illinois, Coastal Carolina, 12-point favorite, 62.5. Saturday, we got 5 games. I'm sorry, 4 more games, 5 games. Appalachian State, 2.5, 66.5. Western Kentucky. Fresno State, 11.5, 51.5 versus UTEP. BYU, 6.5, 55 versus UAB. Liberty, 9.5. They had a pretty good year. Eastern Michigan, 9.5, 58 for Liberty. Oregon State will be 7 against Utah State, 67. Utah State, the Mountain West champs. Oregon State out of the Pac-12. And Louisville Lafayette, 4, 55.5 over Marshall. Of those games of this first weekend, and we'll get to all the bowl games next week, obviously the big ones not until New Year's Eve and New Year's Day, and of course the CFP on January 10th. But any thoughts on any of these bowl games going into the weekend, Nick?
Yeah, so I definitely like BYU a lot. I think they've been great all year. They've only lost 2 games, and they've been beating some pretty good competition. So I think they could take down UAB, especially with that 6.5 spread. Also, Fresno State's always intriguing. They've had a really good year also, and UTEP isn't the most talented team. They've lost a couple tough games. And then the last one, the Louisiana versus Marshall, I don't know how it's -4. Louisiana's been great. They've also beat a couple good teams, like you mentioned, Liberty, a few others, and Marshall just hasn't looked as I expected. So I think Louisiana is a great one in that one.
I'll tell you what, I do like Coastal Carolina a little bit this afternoon. That game goes off at 6 Eastern, 3 o'clock on ESPN against Northern Illinois. Northern Illinois has given up a lot of points this year. Fresno State is intriguing. BYU, they were in the top 25 for a few weeks there when they were playing great. They handled Arizona State. Actually, Utah handled Arizona State, but they've handled some really good Pac-12 teams this year as well, too, including USC. Oregon State, I think Utah State, the Mountain West champion, that's getting 7 points against Oregon State. You see Oregon State, I know they run the ball pretty well and their quarterback's okay. That seems like a lot of points for Utah State to get 7 points against the Beavers this weekend as well, too, Nick.
Utah State has some heavy value in it. Even their money line is heavy value, I think.
What's the money line? Do you know what the money line is offhand?
Let me check. It should be plus 230. Plus 230.
Plus 230. Nice. Okay, there you go.
Nice.
All right, so a lot of bowl games to talk about. We'll get into all the bowl games on Monday as well. CFP, College Football Championship. Don't forget, 9:45 Pacific time, 12:45 on the East Coast. You can join us online. If you're in the area in Capitola, please come down to the Britannia Arms of Capitola, the best British food and restaurant and pub that you can find in Northern California. And you got the Pacific Ocean right there. And you got NFL Sunday ticket. You got Bloody Marys. You got American breakfast. You got British breakfast. You got lunch. And did I mention you have British pub, a drink to do too? That probably is something that's pretty good too for NFL football, for fantasy, for action, for fandom, daily fantasy even, or just come down and hang out with friends, come down and hang out with us. We'd love to meet everybody that supports our show. Make the Money and Run podcast, sponsored by the Britannia Arms of Capitola and the Britannia Arms of Cupertino. If you can't make Capitola, check out Cupertino. Sunday ticket featured prominently, 20 TVs in Cupertino, 7 TVs in Capitola. Thanks to them for sponsoring as well. And also Super Draft Pro is our new partner. Download them on your app on any device or log in at superdraftpro.com/VPartySports. All right. Charlie will be back with us next week. We'll have a full show, 3 o'clock Eastern, 12 o'clock Pacific for the Make the Money and Run podcast. Kent Sterling of Indiana Sports will be here. We'll talk Colts football. We'll talk Pacers basketball. We'll talk some college basketball since Indiana is the hotbed of college basketball right now, with Indiana University and Purdue going strong. And then we'll be back next Thursday with Charlie, and then Friday for a Friday football show on Christmas Eve. Have a great holiday weekend. Enjoy the bowl games. Enjoy the NFL games. Good luck with all your action. And don't forget to tune in on Sunday, 12:45 Eastern, 9:45 a.m. on the West Coast for the Make the Money and Run football show, the NFL preview kickoff. We'll do that live from the Britannia Arms right on the Pacific Ocean in the Capitola Village. For Nick Robinson, our intern Nick, great job today. Vasi Vadaparty here for Charlie O. We will see you on Monday, 3 o'clock Eastern. We'll see you on Sunday at 12:45 Eastern, and then we'll be back for a full show on Monday at 3 Eastern. Have a great weekend. Good luck with your games, and we will talk to you soon. Take care.